Sweet, let's go. Welcome everybody to this week's surprise show. Welcome to Common Sense, the podcast. We finally have a very special guest for you guys. Something's been in the works for a while. And you know, Biz, Friday is actually the show's anniversary. So as of Friday, we will officially be going on year 3 of doing
awesome.
the podcast.
Wow.
So you
Funny
guys,
how time flies.
not that he needs much of an introduction, but you guys welcome Luciano to the show.
Man, pleasure, bro. Pleasure to be here, man.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, too. We've been
Luciano,
trying to do this for a while, huh?
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah.
It just never seems to line up because you're a busy man. When you're in town, you seem to be highly wanted.
But also because when I come here and we're talking, and sometimes it's just like a couple of days here, but this time you let me know beforehand and things that worked out well. So that's awesome, man. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm super excited to have you here. I mean, you're one of my favorite conversationalists when you're here to like just sit and I mean, I could care less what we talk about, but like
I'm honored, brother.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Always a good time. And I love reading your posts online. Like you have some of the best posts that just like when you get in one of your zones where you're just speaking from the heart, man, and like I know your daughters give you a lot of crap for it, but like
I was going to say, so my daughter yesterday, we were talking like, actually it was a family conversation like in the shed, and then she says, Dad, you got to stop with these long posts. Your posts are too long.
That's awesome. Well, for those that don't know who Luciano is, give everybody a little bit of background about yourself. I mean, I don't know who on this show doesn't know because we smoke your cigars on here all the time.
Oh man, I think all I can say is I'm a cigar maker, bro. That's who I am. I start working with tobacco a long time ago, and that was my main thing. You know, that's what I fell in love with is the agricultural side and the blending side. But and that kind of turned into fermentation, and then later making cigars for other companies, and then launch our own brands, 7 years ago. But obviously there's a long story and there's the short version. You know? If I could maybe tell my story in a couple sentences, would be I decided to change my lifestyle. I decided to become a better father and a better husband. And I made a decision to do something that I love. I think that's probably what it was. And I became a better person because of tobacco. So it was healing in many ways. The second side of it is that I deal with a health condition called synesthesia, and it's a lot of pain associated with. And cigars has always been a way for me to cope with the synesthesia, right? So when I smoke, I can focus more, just kind of trying to explain to people what synesthesia is try to imagine that your senses are so affected by the fact that they're mixed. And so the way my brain interprets my senses, it's all kind of mixed up. Like sometimes the touch, what I'm feeling, can cause different sensations in my vision, or my what I'm smoking or I'm eating can affect how I see things, and it's very weird. But there's maybe 1% of good things, which is the ability to memorize flavors, the ability to memorize tones. So if I learn a song in a certain key, I'll never forget that key, or I'll never forget that the song is playing that key. And it was an issue when my kids were younger, because I'll learn a song in a certain key, and then I'll see them singing a different key, along the house, and that would drive me nuts. So I'll have to kind of leave the room, or because I cannot be mad at them.
Yeah,
this is my issue. So it was a combination of both. It was true healing, because it was a way for me to use that pain as a gift, and at the same time bring meaning to a better meaning to my life, because I want to be a better person,
Yeah.
I was at that time I was making a lot of money, but losing entirely my family. You know,
What did you do before cigars?
I was in the financial market.
Okay.
So I started at a very young age. You know, as soon as I left college, I started working with an investment fund, and then created a green fund in Latin America, and it developed really well, and that turned into a consultancy to companies that are part of our portfolio. And that took me away from my family a lot. So I was traveling 200 days of the year. I was somewhere, not home. You know, it was crazy. I was living in 3 different countries. I was spending like 1 week in Switzerland, 1 week in São Paulo, 1 week in Chicago, and then never home with my kids. Anyways.
So what brought you to tobacco? Like, is it started out just as a hobby and something you enjoyed doing?
Oh, I've always smoked since I was like maybe 17, 16 years old. But one of my clients was the Dominican Republic government. So I was working with NDR. That's when I met people from the industry. That's when I met Carlito. I met Ernesto Carrillo. I met a bunch of people there, the Reyes family. And but Ernesto became a closer friend, you know, like not even connected with tobacco. It was a lot about life and relationship and stuff. And then when I went through a very big trauma in my family, that I made that decision. So he was a very big support, a guy who kind of would help me and mentor, and he mentored me into the business. So he gave me one advice I never forgot. So he says, if you're going to get into this business, you know, in cigars, learn agriculture first. You know, learn tobacco. And then after you learn tobacco, you can migrate into making cigars and eventually, you know, having your brand. So yes, I followed that to the
That's
letter.
awesome, you know, and I think that's really carried over and something I really enjoy about you and your brand, because you didn't come from a like legacy family that's been doing cigars for hundreds of years. But I heard you say like that is one of my goals though. I want to create a legacy for my children, my grandchildren, and do that in this industry. And you hear so much in the cigar industry where these guys don't like each other, they talk trash about each other, they, you know, it's all competition. And yet here, so many of these, I mean, you just named like 4 or 5 of the most major cigar guys, and yet they were all willing to like take you under their wing, show you what was going on, even knowing that like your goal was to start your own brand.
I think there's 2 things in the cigar industry. One is, especially like very large corporations, they have no. It's not personal anymore. Like it's pure business, right? So then there's a lot of competition there because they're fighting for market share. They wanna be more present in shelves and stuff. And on the companies that are still family companies or owned by a person, not by an investment fund or a group, etc. There are more chances for that those interactions, you know, those exchanges and friendships. And I can say, man, I have a lot of friendships in the industry, but it's of humanity, you know. Sometimes people just the cigar industry is full of vanity too. So some people like they get jealous or you know they wanna. There's a lot of brands now that people are creating and stuff because they want to have their own brand, and you know, it becomes vanity, you know.
Yeah.
And usually when that happens, you know, usually you get the worst. So I was asked this question a couple of nights ago when we did an event. People asked me like, "What's your advice?" I think the question was like, "What's your advice if for people that wants to start a cigar brand?" And so I said, "Well, first of all, the meaning and the reason why you're starting has to be bigger than yourself. It cannot be about your vanity or building or becoming rich.
Yeah, I want to put my brand on
my brand on it. So it has to be bigger than yourself, especially in this industry. Again, if your desire is to kind of become a celebrity or become rich or being recognized, first of all, the cigar business is such a small bubble, you know. And I say this not in detriment to anybody. It is what it is. If I come here to industry, everybody knows who I am.
Yeah.
If I get into an airplane, nobody has a clue of who I am, because the percentage of cigar smokers is still less than, I don't know, 1.5% of the population. So like, you can be whoever, you can be Carlito, you can be Rocky Patel, they're still not going to recognize you.
Yeah.
If you're on an airplane, 90% will not, or 99% will not. So it's a fantasy that people have of this idea that they'll become somehow special, because they have a cigar brand. So again, unfortunately, this doesn't get to me, I guess.
Is that part of the reason why you're so open to collaborating with guys and helping them out? Like, I mean, just to name a few, I mean, you've got Frankie with Foreign Affair. You've done, with DC and Jamon. You've done the Genesis. You put out the Panda. You got the Delay. Ron Harper, you recently did the Underrated. I mean, I hear guys talk about this all the time, whether we're in this lounge or another lounge. And, you hear the guys that want to start their own cigar brand, just like you're kind of alluding to there. And it's for different reasons and stuff. But even the ones that are really serious, most people would kind of just give them the cold shoulder and just be like, yeah, man, good luck. Here's my phone number if you want some advice or whatever. But you've been totally open and created some amazing sticks with these guys.
Yeah, like, so you mentioned a few names, and I think I have different scenarios, like in each one of them. But if I consult my soul, I think there's something subliminal that happens with me, which is the fact that I actually don't have. I do have one of my daughters that is somehow involved, but I don't think she sees herself taking over and really building a family legacy. And I'm not worried about that. I think the legacy that I'm looking for, it's not the legacy connected with the brand. I think it's more like about the way we do things more than the brand. But
what you're remembered as, maybe more?
I don't even know if that is the case. I hope people remember me more than just tobacco and cigars. But I think it's more about my point is, I feel like even subconsciously, I am always trying to kind of find someone to mentor, and someone to so I can do things that people did for me,
Yeah.
And I feel extremely happy actually when I do that. So it satisfied me. It's not just it's about fulfillment for me when I have the chance to kind of talk and teach and learn also, of course, in the process. But because of that, I made several mistakes, because you act with the heart, and then you make the assumption that the person you're working with has the same heart you have and has, his mindset. And I think it's some kind of a blind side for me. I think I made a few mistakes, but I think I've been scoring more than made mistakes. You mentioned, like, for example, Frankie and Ron, and you met Ron.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Dude, down to earth, real guy.
Yeah.
He's everything, but the guy has 5 rings with the NBA.
And I don't think you'd recognize him walking down the street, like, unless you were a Bulls fan.
Exactly.
The way he is today, like, and the way he just carries himself and everything, other than, like, you see a really tall guy.
Exactly. And listen, that's how he is. That's who he is.
Yeah.
He's very happy the way he is. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to work with him. Actually, the idea of the name Underrated came from him. But it was in a very humble way, because he is the most underrated player in the whole
Absolutely.
NBA. The guy has 5 rings, played with Michael Jordan, Scott Pippen, all this, Dennis Rodman, all these guys at the Bulls. When he arrives at the Bulls win like 3 consecutive championships. He leaves the Bulls, he goes to Lakers, win 2 more. Like, the guy is it's amazing, right? So he has all the stats and everything. But he was always a humble guy. He'll never give interview. He's always like behind the scenes. That's his personality.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of the underrated. So what we did, I told him, I said, hey, I'm not going to do any celebrity cigars, and I'm not going to fall into that trap again. So let's do this. I have an idea. The marketing of this cigar will be, we're going to launch this cigar, and we're not going to tell anybody that we're involved. Anybody. When we start seeing reorders and people see that cigar is really good and they want to reorder more, then we're going to reveal that, by the way, Ron Harper is a partner of this brand. And he accepted that in a minute. He didn't like, I'm going to think about it. He said, no, I love it. That's how I want to do it. So we built a blend with actually probably some of the most expensive tobaccos and the most inexpensive cigar. So you have Connecticut broadleaf filler, you have HVA filler, HVA from Ecuador. So when we buy wrappers, Connecticut and Ecuadorian wrappers,
right.
There's a lot of fillers that comes with. Either they're too thick to be a wrapper, or there's maybe one imperfection, the color is not right. So we start separating them. And then after years doing that, you get stuck with all those fillers, and we're not blending with them. And so I said, you know what, let's start intentionally try to blend with this and see what the outcome we get. And the outcome was the sweet and strong cigar without delivering spiciness, without delivering any harshness, clean in your palate. And then we decided to be generous, because I could charge $20 for that cigar at MSRP, but we decided to pass on, because that tobacco was already paid for. Basically, we used the wrappers and was sitting there. So let's make a good use of it and make it accessible cigar. We put a very nice wrapper though. So
yeah, I like that. And I think what kind of sums this up is I heard you say one time, we are not what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of carries across with all of that. Like, you're more than just, a cigar guy. You're a businessman, you're a family man, you're a friend. Mm-hmm. And I think you embody that more than most people I know. Mm. And
one
it's
thing
really
I noticed though about
awesome
him,
to watch.
Your collaborations match you. So one thing is, because when the Maria Lucia came, I remember PCA a couple years ago when we met, talked about it, filming, and I heard the story, I seen the drawing, all that. Mm-hmm. Every cigar has to have a story behind it. Your reason why, everything. And then I look at who you collaborate with. I'm very close with Jamon and all that. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the genesis, that was because of his mother. Mm-hmm. And you look at the story behind it. You just talk about underrated, the story, why it is. Like you said, for people that get into it for fortune and fame, for just the fluff, that's exactly what they're going to produce. But when you put something together that when you sit back and when you experience it, you don't smoke it, you experience it, there's always going to be a reason why I reach for a Gin 413. I reach for a Foreign Affair. This right here, like I smoked the underrated for the first time. I got it from Ron on Saturday. And I'm like, I ain't never smoked a cigar. Give me a cigar. As you was D'ing people up on the basketball court. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, I was like, man, I didn't know he had that in him.
I know. He was crossing over people.
But I noticed one thing. Your demeanor matches theirs. If you think about it, laid back, really chill, very grounded, about business, not over the top, but everything gets handled.
He can do that to a whole room, though. Like, I've literally watched him walk into a room here. That
my octave and my talking just went down. My voice was high until he walked in the room.
You guys
now
are
I'm all
too
into
much
my
smoke right now.
voice.
So let's move on. I think just keep talking about the partnership aspect. So, and then we have like Frankie, this pure soul, like a guy who it's truly passionate about everything. Everything he does in our company, humble, someone that you can trust. So again, that's some of these partnerships I'm being extremely happy with, and then you make some mistakes along the way, and I wish the best for people always. Again, I think the secret of a partnership is always it has to be productive for everybody. Sometimes it's not even a mistake. It's not meant to be. Sometimes you try some partnerships because you want to believe the best of yourself and whoever you're partnering with, And sometimes there's no chemistry. That's it. Sometimes it doesn't work. Or sometimes, in our case, when it comes to distribution, for example, like there was a time where we decided to go by ourselves. And so we distribute for Dalai, we distribute for ATL. Maybe there'll come a time where some of them will come to us and say, listen, we're thankful for all the help you did, and we want to distribute by ourselves. And I have to be ready for that and say, that's good, man. I'm happy for you, And actually, in both cases that I just mentioned, ATL and Dalai, we make the cigars. So I don't want to stop making, but if they decided to kind of maybe, take their own way and distribute the product themselves and themselves telling their story, I'll be more than happy to, because, it means like we win. It means like, a company that was only present in Atlanta now has footprint, throughout the nation, other countries and stuff, and we're able to serve them. And now they're growing. So that's exactly that kind of mentorship mindset that I was telling you.
Yeah.
That kind of excites me, So, but some people come and go. It's part of life.
Yeah. How did being a sommelier also influence you in the cigar world?
Like wine was always also my escape for the synesthesia stuff. They're very similar in the process when it comes to being a fermented product, soil, different seed strains and blending, they're very similar. But I never got into enology. I never got into blending wines. It's not my thing. I don't know how to. I was just passionate for wines, and at a very young age, I start taking courses. I get my LSAT 1, and then 2, more like a hobby than anything else. It's just probably part of who I am, for the DNA and stuff. I think it helps when you study wine. You learn the school of wine. So the reasons why things pair and why, and you learn about acidity. You learn about how you create balance, or what a balanced wine should be in different types of grapes and taste profiles, different regions and stuff. That helps. I don't think it's like one of the main things, but it does help.
Did music, you think, maybe play a bigger part? Because I know you're
Absolutely.
very passionate about music, and I've heard you tell a lot of stories, and I've even seen you playing the piano at events and stuff.
Yeah,
before.
man, I fool people with my music because I never took any classes. It's just because it's easier for me to memorize tones and keys and stuff. So I play by ear a few things, I play a little bit of piano, a little bit of guitar, play drums. But you know what people say, jack of many trades, master of none. So I don't consider myself like a good musician, but it does influence a lot because usually on the blending aspect, there's always some kind of songs coming through my head, So
yeah, because you're very poetic with everything you write and say. So I knew that had to be a big part of it when you're like breaking down these blends and doing stuff. Like, what's your go-to when you're trying to be really creative or to obtain a little bit of creativity, maybe even if you're not feeling super creative at the time?
That's a good point. Yeah, because sometimes, there's 3 approaches in the development of a product, right? One sometimes is just because you stumble into something. Like I'm usually manipulating tobacco and smoking things and trying new things and putting 2-3 tobaccos together. Sometimes you just get into a product. Sometimes it's because there's a story. And usually, actually, they're too connected because even when you stumble into something, there's a story why you got to that point, and we like to tell that story, in the products we created. Fiat Lux, for example. So Fiat Lux was that kind of obsessive idea of how can I make a cigar that makes people salivate, so there'll be more transitions, etc. There was a journey, and then a journey of not just try and error, but a journey of knowledge, of studying and stuff. So we decided to name the sizes of the cigars after expressions of human knowledge. That's why the 58 ring gauge, we call acumen, and there's the genius, which is the robusto size, and we have insights, and in the Corona, intuition. So we name after, and that's the story of the cigar. It's just searching for knowledge and searching for an outcome that I haven't experienced in a cigar before, so I can be disruptive in that sense. And sometimes you commission too, and that's the toughest one. It's when a guy like Dalai comes to me and says, "Oh, I want to build something that has this kind of frequency, this taste profile, this characteristic, this strength, and that needs to express who we are and our story, in Germany." I'm like, fuck, man, how am I gonna, So then comes the challenge. So you have to try to kind of feel like that person and understand exactly what he wants. What is he talking about? What kind of taste profile is that?
Yeah.
What he means, and then comes conversations until I kind of understand a little bit, and then the journey begins. Sometimes that journey takes a while, like with Jay for definition. Like he came over to Nicaragua. It's a fun story. You probably heard that story because you were at the event the other night. Mm-hmm. Damn, this guy's a hell of a DJ, by the way.
Yeah.
So
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
He does. So, so I was with Jay on the stage, and he was telling the story about how we got to the blend. But the fun part of it is we just try different things. We've been working for the entire week. So Jay's is it's not like my blend. It's just Jay's. It's just four hands. So we do it together, and so we're doing something, and then we go to the farm in the morning. We're coming back. It's like almost 4:00, and we're smoking the samples in the car. And many people don't know this, but sometimes you have to force dry the blend because you want to see how it tastes right away. So you cannot. We don't want to wait for the blend to dry, and then we're gonna wait
telling me about that on Saturday.
2 weeks. Yeah. So we force dry in different ways. We can talk about it later. But one of the ways is when it's hot, you just actually open a little bit of the window of the car, and if you park the car, just leave it there in the sun, and it will dry. So we went to the farm. We let the blends dry and the samples dry, and then we were driving back. We're both smoking the same cigar, and then he's like, "Man, I don't know. I'm missing some of that magic. That some of that signature that you guys have." And here's me trying to understand where he's coming from, and then something clicked. I said, I think I know what it is. That there was a prime of Umetep we're using. I said, let's elevate that prime. I think that will. But was his observation, So when we get back to the factory, we just tweaked, and that was it. That was the blend was done. Based on his insight of tweaking the blend and getting to the point where you wanted to get. So there's these three approaches. Sometimes you have to be commissioned and you have to deliver that because you have clients that are waiting for the blend. And what I try to do though, when people ask me what's the difference between your company and other companies, or it's hard to say because there's so many good cigars, so many good companies, there's so many good friends that make amazing cigars. So how can we stand out, right? One of our signatures is the fact that we don't have one cigar that tastes like the other in our portfolio. You can smoke a Fialux, you can smoke the Emergence that we're smoking from Peter James, you can smoke the Foreign Affair, you can smoke the Maria Lucia. They all taste completely different from each other. So in that journey of finding that disruption within our portfolio, which means I want to create something that I don't have yet, you ended up making a lot of good stuff that you're not going to use. Right, yeah. So there is always also a sort of a library of blends that we have. They are great, but we don't intend to use those blends. And then sometimes we work with partner stores like Industrial, for example, that we have a journey together, and they do amazing business with us. And we say, hey, listen, why don't we make an exclusive for that specific store? Then we have those blends. Or sometimes, actually, it just happened last week. I had a guy from a cigar lounge called Blaze Cigar Lounge from Kentucky and Cincinnati area. So he flew over to Nicaragua, spent a week there. And it was fun as hell, man. We just kind of every day, trying new cigars, and he came there, and we make that exclusive, just out of amazing conversations throughout the week, and the results are very interesting. Actually, at the end, I said, man, so we found disruption here, and I'm gonna give you this blend. Come on. We should launch something with that.
Well, that's what I like with yours too. Like it's almost like when I'm listening to music, you can tell kind of like what kind of mood I'm in. Like that. I listen to everything, but like it kind of sets my tone for the day. Or then I go to the gym and I'm listening to my gym music, and then afterwards I kind of take that down a notch and listen to something a little different. I feel like I rotate through the different lines you have with people and your own same way. I think that helps me not ever really get burnt out. Like I haven't burnt myself out on anything, because I may smoke foreign affair throughout the week, and then next week I'm like, on the Maria Lucia, like I kind of just gravitate back and forth throughout them, because like you said, they're all completely different experiences. How tough is that? And this is something I've asked a few people on here that are cigar knowledgeable people. How hard is that when you're trying to do stuff? Because I know all the time, like, leaves and stuff change. You have the different seasons, the harvests, good harvest, bad harvest. It was a drought this year. It was, super rainy. And the effects that has on the tobacco when you're trying to make a cigar that you want it to taste a certain way, and then to be able to continuously produce that year in and year out, to where the average person is not going to be able to pick up that it's that different.
No, I think people do pick up. There's obviously some sort of some brands have some cult following, so they will smoke it no matter what, just because of the brand. But there's a lot of difference, and you're absolutely right. So the weather, the amount of sun that we have that year, if the soil is tired, if there's so many factors that actually contribute to the outcome of the tobacco. And the industry built a myth that I like to debunk. Which is like, in order for you to keep consistency, you need to use exactly the same tobaccos, the exact same primes from the exact same farm, which is not true. Actually, for you to keep consistency, you have to keep tweaking the blend. Because you're right. Let's just, for starters, if I have a pilon of tobacco, or if I have even the tobacco in bales, and I have a very large amount of tobacco that I can produce 3 years of, 200,000 cigars every year of that same blend, that tobacco that's been sitting in the pilon or in the bale for 1 year, 1 year from now will taste different. There are yeasts working and fermenting the tobacco, even in cold fermentation, that change how the tobacco will taste. Some of the tobaccos, because of the seed strain and the soil, will ramp up in flavor and strength. Some will mellow down. So what we have to do is, every single batch of cigars we're making, we have to smoke them, test them, and make sure they are in the same realm of the previous batch. And if they are not, I'm going to have to alter proportions to make sure that delivers exactly that same flavor. So a company that keeps a good consistency, and you see that the cigars are always tasting the same, is because they're tweaking their blend every time they produce it.
So it comes way more down to the master blender.
It's the opposite. So the master blending, like people like to call, I don't like the word master, but the blending aspect comes from actually your ability to create consistency by making sure that the blend stays the same, tweaking the blend. So it's exactly the opposite. If you actually do exactly the same recipe every time you produce a batch of cigars, your cigar will not be consistent. So the blend would change. I'm not saying that sometimes we change for better, sometimes we change for worse.
Yeah.
Some tobaccos that people use, they're not actually ready. Then when they get ready, the blend get better. There's always these nuances in the taste profile. Some of them are nuances, are very, very small, but some of them are big. One of the interesting topics that I like to discuss is always like the difference between the tobaccos from Dominica, Nicaragua, Cuba, Honduras. like if you see the topology of Cuba, they're all in the same altitude, which means the soil is extremely similar everywhere. If it's Havana Volta Abajo, if it's Media Vuelta, the entire Pinar del Rio, which is the region of tobacco in Cuba, it's in the same altitude, which means the soil is an equalizer. So what makes the difference in the Cuban tobacco is the seed strain. So the different types of seed provide a different outcome of the tobacco and the fermentation.
Okay.
So those are what influences the taste profile. The soil influences, but it's an equalizer, so it's the same soil. So what makes the difference? The seed strain. If you go to Dominican, very similar. Dominican has different soils, but they are very similar. So what makes the difference is the seed strain. That's why you go to the Dominican farm, usually they are far from each other. They don't grow tobacco too close to each other because they want to avoid cross-pollination. Because the seed strain is more it's a more determined aspect of the taste profile of the blend that you're doing. That's why when you read reviews, you notice that when people refer to Dominican or Cuban tobacco, they say this is the seed. This is like Criollo 98, or this is Corojo 99, or this is Allure, this is Santo Espirito, or this is, HVA. So the seed strain is way more important. Now, when you go to Nicaragua, you noticed that reviewers of cigars, they refer to Nicaraguan tobacco by the region. They say this is from Condega, this is from Jalapa, this is from Esteli, this is Ometepe, this is Pueblo Nuevo, this is Somoto, this is Masatepe. So the region, the soil plays a way more important role in the taste profile than the seed. In fact, I can tell you that certain soils are so predominant, like Esteli and Ometepe, for example, that very few people will be able to taste it and differentiate the seed strain. That's how important the soil is. So we're talking about 5 different microclimates. So if you are like in a lake level, which is Masatepe and Ometepe, lake level,
okay,
it's below sea level. And the soil is yellowish. So there's a lot of sulfur because of the volcanoes. There's active volcanoes there ashing out, and the sulfur and iodine and sodium chloride and salt, it's in the soil very predominantly. And you can taste that, and it's very prominent. You go to Esteli, you're going 3,000 feet above sea level. So the mountains, they look smaller, and there's a lot of biomatter in the soil. So a lot of biomatter decomposed in the soil, not much minerals. Less minerals, more biomatter. And then you start going to Condega, 800 feet below, completely different soil. A more kind of balanced. I think Condega is probably one of the only regions in the world that you can make a real puro, and it's not boring because there's a lot of complexity. Pueblo Nuevo is the same. Then you go to Jalapa, it's a valley where rivers bring a lot of sand to the soil because the farmers, they use the water to irrigate from the river. So they put more sand into the soil. That's why you get the sweet tobacco, because the reaction of the sandy soil brings that sweetness that needs a contrast to kind of pop, but there's a lot of sweetness that comes from the soil. Now you have in one country all these different microclimates with different taste profiles, and the seed doesn't play in Jalapa I would say that the seed makes a lot of difference, but still there's a connection. If it's from Jalapa, you taste it. It's Jalapa. If it's from Esteli, man, you gotta be good to notice the difference, because the soil is so predominant. And Ometepe is the same thing. Actually, I challenge anyone to kind of smoke. I'll bring like 3 different seed strains for people to try. And there's a joke because all the factories are all the farms are so close to each other. Like cross pollination is almost impossible to avoid, unless if you are a very large company, and some of them do. We are not large, but we try to do as well. You keep the integrity of the seed by growing a specific plot just to collect seeds, and you have a bank of seeds always available to maintain the purity of that specific seed. Otherwise, myths start being created, right? So now there's this expression of mejorado. I don't know if you heard this before. Oh, this is a Criollo 98 mejorado. This was an expression very much used in Cuba and Nicaragua because of this lack of control of the seeds, the cross-pollination. They start observing that certain seeds will give a better yield or be more resistant to certain molds and stuff, certain diseases. And they start like picking those seeds, and they notice that in that crop that year, the tobacco seemed to be better, maybe thicker and all the better yield, had a nice flavor.
Yeah.
And they start calling mejorado. Now people are calling mejorado a seed, like it's not a thing. So it's so funny. Same thing with medio tiempo. That's another topic. Like if you want to go later, we can talk about it. It's another joke.
That's awesome. Well, tell everybody about what you brought that we're getting to smoke right now, because I want to humble brag. Luciano brought us a treat today.
Bro, we're smoking the Emergence. So we launched this at the trade show this year, and now it's shipping next week, hopefully. So it's a lot of craft and work put into this. Just the package itself is a nightmare. So we have suppliers from everywhere, and
I never do this, but
it is probably the most expensive cigar we ever put in the market.
It's phenomenal.
There's a reason why. So I know there's a lot of expensive cigars out there right now, but we're very proud of this. We can. I told this to John Lorenzi. It's our partner on the company. And I told him, I said, I can only produce something like that if my reps can actually stand behind and say there's a reason why this costs what it costs. And there's a real story for us to tell. It cannot be bullshit marketing. It looks great. It's beautiful. I feel good in my hand. No, it has to taste like what it is and has to cost us to make. So a lot of people think, oh, there's a huge margin. These guys are making a lot of money. There's very, very, probably the same margin I have in any other product here. But the cost to make this is very, very high. So we have one of the most expensive wrappers in this cigar. We picked every single one of the tobaccos for the cigar to its maturity. So what that means, over the years we studied that certain tobaccos, they reach their peak in strength and flavor, and they decline. And sometimes they stay in the plateau and then they start declining. So we every single tobacco we used, we picked in that peak. So everything is fermented to the blend, to the perfection of the blend, to the optimum performance. And we have tobaccos here that age for a very long time, and tobaccos that age for 3 years, 3.5 years. We have tobaccos that age for 1.5 years because their peak. Jalapa is a good example.
Yeah.
Just like grapes, just like wine. That's another similarity too. Try to age a Pinot from Oregon in 4 or 5 years. It's going to taste like vinegar. You can't drink it. So it's a ready-to-drink wine. Any Pinot, actually, but especially from Oregon. So if you get any Malbec from Mendoza Valley, so you drink that max with 7 years. If you wait more than 7 years, you lose the wine. I mean, it becomes more and more flat. So there's nothing there. Now, if you age a Bordeaux, the grapes that blend a Bordeaux, they're meant to be aged. You can keep that sometimes for 100 years. There's still sugars coming out. There's still flavors coming out. Tobacco is exactly the same thing. That's when people come to you sometimes and say, I've been aging the cigar in my humidor for 5 years before I put it in the market. It's polemic what I'm going to say, but don't buy that cigar because he has no control of it. So when we blend a cigar, it's ready to be smoked. The intention of the blend is right now. Because what will happen with a blend if you wait 5 years to smoke? It might become better for you. It's true. But if you have, like, for example, Jalapa, Esteli, and Allure, Jalapa, after 1.5 years, 2 years, will decline in strength and flavor and will taste like nothing. And the Esteli is going to ramp up. So now you have a predominant Esteli blend, and you might enjoy that. And it's fair. You're going to say, well, I love to age the cigars because it tastes more of the Esteli. But it's not the intention of the blender. So now you're changing that. So you're not actually experiencing the cigar how it's supposed to be experienced. Because you want to believe that the cigar tastes better after you age for a long time. So the aging room at the factory is way more to humidity equalization than actually to add any flavor, taste to it. There is a settling time that's necessary for the wrapper to dry, for the humidity to be the same. When fillers comes to the table to manufacture a cigar, they are dry. They come at 30% of humidity. Think of relative humidity.
Yeah.
Binders comes at 70%, and the wrapper comes at 100%. So now you have 3 different types of humidity in the cigar. You have to wait until that humidity is even. So then you can smoke the cigar. Then there's no issues with combustion. Then there's no aftertaste. Then there's no harshness because of the humidity.
You don't wake up the next morning still tasting that same cigar.
Exactly. So that's why it's important the cigar to sit, for maybe a month, 3 weeks minimum. So there's this humidity equalization that takes time to get there. But it's not because you're aging it. We age in the pilon. So when you bring the tobacco to build the cigar, that tobacco has been aged. And it should be ready to be rolled in a cigar and consumed. But some people like to collect, and I have some old cigars myself, and it's fine. But if you wanna say the truth,
Yeah,
that's the truth.
What about all the different building all the different rooms to age in with different woods and stuff like that? You hear some people talk a lot about that. What are your thoughts on that and how that affects
I think it's
anything?
extremely pleasant. Like I remember opening some kind of old Cuban boxes that was when they used to make like everything cedar and stuff. So you open like you taste. It's a sensor. It's a more like a sensory experience, a sensory experience of kind of smelling and the cold draw and everything else. But to be fair, after you start combustion, all that goes away. So what you feel in your mouth and the wrapper, yes. I mean, you can sometimes like taste the cold draw, and you can taste. But as soon as you start combustion, usually the combustion takes away and becomes more predominant, and you experience more in your mouth, and then everything else kind of becomes a little more subtle until it disappears. But I think wood is good to keep cigars. So I like to have wood shelves and stuff because it helps like take away the humidity. It's easier to maintain humidity as well. That's what the wood is for. It's good for preserving, But yeah, people have like different types of wood to add flavors and to add. But it's more about your nose and actually truly your palate.
What about changing with fermentation and like trying to balance that?
Oh, that's very important, man. That plays a huge role because I can build hundreds of different types of blend using exactly the same tobaccos, even the same proportions, but at different fermentation levels. If I want to create more acidity, I'm not going to ferment that much. So, which is another myth, like strength and flavor and body. And so everybody perceives flavors differently, Sometimes I see like reviews and people saying, "Oh, it tastes like a lot of cocoa notes and chocolate and stuff," and say, "Oh, that's very personal." Because maybe if someone has a different pH of your saliva, they'll change. They'll taste differently.
Yeah.
Just for starters, 50% of the population has a bacteria in their stomach called H. pylori. That's why people have a lot of reflux and acidity and heartburn and stuff. Usually that comes from that bacteria, and that changes the pH of your saliva. So usually your saliva is more acidic because of that. It's a reaction for the inflammation in your stomach. So then you will perceive strength different, and you're going to taste, all your cigars will taste different than someone that doesn't have that bacteria.
Right.
So just for starters, if you take any medication for chronic disease, let's say you're taking anti-inflammatory, or you're taking something for depression, or you're just taking a Tylenol, that changes how you perceive flavor. So the possibility of having 10 people in a room and all tasting the same notes, I'm talking about notes, I'm not talking about acidity, there's some common grounds that everybody can agree on. But most of the stuff that we read is extremely subjective. So if I perceive floralness at the beginning, you might be perceiving nuttiness just because of what you ate. If you keep yourself hydrated, and I don't drink water, you're going to perceive flavors different than I do.
Yeah, well, just you're drinking bourbon, I'm drinking tequila.
It's enough.
I'm sure this
it's
tastes
enough. It's
completely
enough to
different
change
both
how
of
we
us.
perceive it. You might say, "Oh, I love this," but the notes that you usually read in reviews and stuff, it's very personal to the reviewer. I like reviews that are objective when they can mention the notes, which is awesome. I think that helps people to connect. Oh, I feel the same thing. Because you might have the same way of perceiving flavor.
I feel the exact same way about bourbon because I got really into the bourbon scene. And I've broken my nose so many times and had reconstructive surgery. Like, so my smell is not the same as yours.
Are you a fighter or something?
No. I just got in lots of fights as a kid, all the different places I lived. But I can't, like, you'd watch these guys, they'll sniff their bourbon and stuff like that, and they're picking out all these note stuff. I can't do that. Like, I can either smell it for sure or I can't at all. Now, as soon as it hits my tongue and I can taste the different on my palate, then I can pick out different things. But it's crazy to me that people would do that. They do that with bourbon too, where it's like, oh, I taste, chocolate s'mores and graham cracker and, there are definitely those experiences, but you can let that same bottle stay open for a little while once you've opened it and had a couple pours. And you go back to it 3 months, 6 months later, and now it tastes completely different than it did.
But like I said, there's some common grounds, like salinity, acidity, umami, sweetness, body, so texture, of the smoke. So those are things that we can all agree on. But like the subtle notes of floralness and tea and green tea and it's very, very personal, and I have a lot of experiences with cigars sometimes that I'm going through some medications, like I got a flu, for example, and I'm taking like, I don't know, Aleve or Tylenol or whatever. I notice that my palate changes immediately. So I'm not actually tasting as I was before, but maybe I'm muting some of my senses and I'm actually enhancing some others, and I'm tasting some things that I didn't taste before, and that's all subjective.
How do you balance that with the condition you have and everything, and like getting consistency there? Is that a challenge?
No,
for
it's
you?
just a hypersensitivity. The way I explain is if there's a charcoal board here and you scratch it, sometimes people feel goosebumps, right? Because you feel like, oh my God, stop this! This noise is killing me, right? So multiply that by 10. So that's the pain of synesthesia. So you have your senses extremely enhanced in one way. It's not that you hear better. It's just that the sound.
You're not telling your wife that, anyways.
Exactly. It's just that the sound has a different, and for me it's kind of weird because I have to base on my bad days and my good days. My good days when I'm not having like a lot of crisis, I'm not having synesthesia, so I know what maybe a normal. It's kind of weird to say this, but a normal person has,
Yeah.
And I compare to when I'm in crisis, so I know the pain, what it is, and that's how I describe. So yeah, it does affect, of course. Like if I sometimes
I think
if
it might
I
be your superpower.
But everybody. So everything comes in a package. Mm-hmm. If you look into the most brilliant minds of physics, like Einstein. Einstein came with dyslexia, depression. There's a lot of things. The best philosophers, the big philosophers, they went through a lot of pain. Some of them commit suicide. Some of the best musicians and poets, and so every single human being comes with a package of things, and usually all your gifts are tied to pain. Every single one of them. If you were born to be an athlete, so and you're gonna find happiness and accomplishment into the sports, there's no way you're gonna be able to be a performance athlete if you don't work your ass off. So you have to go through pain. There's no other way. So you have to exercise and have to endure way more than other people have to, because you choose something to do that's your talent, but it's connected with your pain. If you are more intellectual and you like to write and read and learn, and like when you start questioning existence and you start realizing that so many ugly things in the world, and how the world is unfair, why a kid that is born in the slums of Ghana in Africa has to have the outcome when a kid that was born here in Dallas, Texas, with school system and everything else, he can live longer, he can have a better life, and that kid can't. And you can't solve that. You start like questioning everything. Yeah. And a lot of people, man, kill themselves because of it, because they can't explain it. So if you're a deep thinker, it comes in a package.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have a sense of awareness so strong that can drive you nuts. You know, sometimes ignorance is a blessing, right? And some people, man, will struggle with different things. You know, everybody has their own struggles and their own gifts and stuff. So,
can you talk about your practice of gratitude a little bit? Because I've heard you talk about this a couple times, and I think it's something really remarkable that I know you consistently do. What?
I think
how's that come into your life, and that you really have been so consistent with like making it a part of everything you do?
Bro, I'll tell you something that might not be the answer you expect. I believe in one maybe a common philosophy amongst almost every single religion. If you look at Buddhism and Christianism and even Islam, it's connected to what we're talking about the pain and stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like the things we do better are connected with our weaknesses. So, like for Christians, like in the Bible, the Saint Paul says that where I'm weak, he makes me strong. So where I'm weak is actually where I'm stronger, because I'm not just depending on my power. I'm actually depending on God to overcome this. And for some reason, when you take that step, and God can speak through many ways, can speak through you to me, and through him to my life, and through me to you. I'm not saying anything supernatural, but I was having this conversation with a sales rep, areas that he struggles and stuff. I said, well, you're going to be extremely strong in this area, because when you recognize that this is a weakness, you're going to pay more attention. You're going to exercise more. You're going to be more attentive. People will help you. You're going to ask for help. So then you overcome that, and that's going to become probably your best strength. Is going to become actually the better of you, you know. So when we talk about gratitude, I actually see myself, I trend to not be grateful. I think that's because I when I say not be grateful is I think I trend to just forget things quickly. But there was one point in my life, you know, couple decades ago, that when I realized that, I start exercising it. I start like, no, I have to be. And it's funny because it's always connected with my past and not the present. So it's not like I'm feeling gratitude right now. It's like I look to the past and I see, man, how did I endure this? How I was able to win this? How did I survive to this point? How did my family stood together after so many things? How come I've been married for 28 years? And, you know, so you start actually being grateful if you just start looking to the past and what you went through. And as I did the exercise, I became, I started to become more and more grateful, you know. So, and I think I became strong in it, but because I was actually very weak in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No.
Do you think that was kind of tied to like, I mean, I think that's kind of like also mastering your emotions.
Yeah, I do.
Like when you can master and have control over your emotions, I think that makes you a lot stronger person.
Yeah, there's no, I think, listen, there's no recipe. You know, I don't believe in happiness or accomplishment as an end. So, because if you reach that end, where is after? You know, so I need to find something else, right? It is about, I know it sounds very kind of cheesy, but it is about the journey. You know, it's not about you get to the end, so I'm going to be a better person in the future. It's about it's about like how can I be a better person now, and kind of, you know, groom my relationships, pay attention to the other. You know, you asked me about how I got into the industry. You know, I remember the days before I got to the industry, especially when you're dealing with the money and power and you tend to not see people. You know.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're a bad person. It's just that, you know, when your schedule, your time is so tight and you have to be in one place and have a meeting, and then suddenly you see people open the door for you, and then now they're reminding you what you have to do, and someone's telling, hey, that person is important for you to talk to, and then you have everybody kind of around you. You start feeling that level of power. You start just becoming blind to people. So you're not saying hello anymore. You're not paying attention to someone who's opening the door for you. You're not paying attention to the story of people that are actually involved into the process. And so I always been asking God for decades to kind of never get to that point. You know, like really try to listen. The secret, in my opinion, for anyone's desire to be happy is to recognize their weakness and not be ashamed of, and just speak out loud. But there's something with American culture about, like, you know, first of all, when people greet each other, say, how are you? I'm doing really well. Everything's perfect in my life. You know, I don't have any problems. That's the answer we give.
Yeah.
We are taught to give that answer. But we all know it's not true. We all go to hard times.
We're all
every
influencers
day.
on Instagram.
Every day. Or there's also the pessimists, right? So when you greet them and say, how is it going? Same thing, different day. How are you doing? I'm okay.
Another day in paradise.
It's another day, yeah. But, you know, I think both things are completely not accurate, not correct. I think it's about living every day, knowing your flaws and know your weaknesses, recognizing them, facing them, because you got to have balls, man, to face your own fears, face your own struggles, face your own weaknesses, and come clean and say, listen, I can't do this. When you do that, then that's a path for you to become actually extremely strong in that area that you feel weak about, you know.
How have you gone about fixing or seeking out help or building relationships to help you in areas of weakness?
Oh man, it's a good question. I think in general, I think real relationships, friendships. I think another thing that we live on, the times we live today is, it's like you have always to perform. People expect something from you. People expect you to be perfect. And also, it's a time where there's this distrust, this lack of trust into each other. I've been saying this in several events actually lately, for the past year or so. I think we live times that we are extremely skeptical, right? So we don't believe in each other. We don't believe in politicians. We don't believe in religious leaders. Probably heard me saying this before. There's this disbelief, you know, like we don't trust each other. You know, we the first reaction is never to believe. It takes time for us to trust each other, or sometimes someone to come and say, hey, I know that guy for years. You can trust him, you know. And then you trust someone, you know. But when you find real relationships, people that really care for you, you know, I'm blessed to say that, and that's the answer to your question, is when you find real, true relationships that usually is found in family. Like there's absolutely nothing that my daughters can do wrong that's going to make me love them less. Yeah. No matter what they do. They can screw up, they can do the best thing. I'm always going to love them. It's this altruistic love that does not depend on results or anything. There's no expectations in return, you know?
Yeah.
When we start grasping that type of relationship where I'm doing this for you, not because I'm paying this lunch for you, not because I expect you to pay me back. There's no reciprocity, there's no value exchange. I'm doing this for you. And usually when you do things that the person cannot pay you back, those are the best things. Yeah. Because then that person knows that you don't expect anything from that person. So you're doing out of real love. And we do encounter people like that in our lives. So when you do encounter real relationships, friendships that you can cultivate, and you see that there is a real care. So you care about that person, the person cares about you. You know, that's the opportunity that I see where this type of things can become true. That you can actually rely on that person and be vulnerable and say, listen, this is my struggle. Can you help me here? I notice that for you, it's easy to do this. For me, it's so hard. How do you do it? You know, can you help me? Or can you be a support for me to do this? You know, or people that love you will actually do it without even you asking. You know, they'll come to you and say, I know you're going through tough times, and I want to be of help, and I notice you need this help. Here it is. You know, I'm here for you. You know, I think that's the only way. Actually, humans were designed to be that way. So we are one of the species created by God that cannot live on our own, you know. And a great philosopher already said that. Man is not an island. So, and even if we were an island, there's a connection in the bottom. So we all connected, you know. And we need even for the worst and for the good. Like why people like to have the best car. No, my grandpa used to say that there's a level of comfort that you reach that when it goes beyond that it's very damaging for your soul. So he gives an example of the chair. You know, one day humans, they used to just sit in the ground, and one day they start sitting in a stone, and then someone came up with making a little higher, and then there's a wood chair that people can sit, and then they realized it was more comfortable than the stone, and then someone created a little cushion. And now we have these amazing couches that we can sit on.
Lazy boy recline.
And this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But then comes a point where, oh no, this couch is branded Gucci. Yeah. So I'm going to now charge 10,000 times more. So because it was $1,000, it's $10,000 just because there's a stamp called Gucci. But why we do that? Because people wants to show other people that they have that. So they need... The status require comparison. Yeah. Even for the worst, we are social. So we need other people to say we are better. We need to be VIP because there are people that are not VIP. Yeah. So it's part of the humanity, right? And on the good side is we are our best when we have people that we trust and people that encourage us, that empower us, that they synergy, like, 1 + 1 = 10. So, that's of humanity. We have the good side and the bad side, but we're all social. We cannot live without each other.
Yeah, that's one of those things that drives me nuts. I hate the way society has gotten to where we just want to put everything into boxes and everything has to be categories. You're this, you're that. Like, if we got closer to just being a human race again...
It's nuts, isn't it?
It would be such a better world to live in.
So much easier, dude.
It's almost like people put more energy into division than they do into unity. Yeah. They'll put more effort into the negative than they will into the positive. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to call that human nature just by itself, but it's kind of developing into that until you have. And it's crazy how you have somebody that consciously acknowledges that, and when they bring it up, people don't want to talk about it. Let's talk about. Yeah,
it's uncomfortable. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's just I think that's happened over social media too. It's magnified all of that, man, because you have everybody just showing their best side. Nobody puts their best day on there, or their worst. The worst day,
right?
No one goes on Facebook and starts going live streaming, talking about this is my worst day, man. I'm really struggling.
It's always about instant success.
Or sometimes it's just not even reality.
Yes.
It's a lot of this. It's a phenomenon now. Like people pretend to be what they're not.
Yeah. I was just about to say that people go broke renting things just so they can show out
the influencer world, man. I can't stand it. It drives me absolutely crazy to watch these influencers that have put no work into their craft or what they're doing, but they post one video that goes viral because they do something stupid or fake, and then it goes viral. And now, I mean, like, look, we've been doing it. We're going on 3 years now. Hawk Tua made that one comment on the interview.
And now she's
and they just signed her on, like, Sirius or something like that. and she's got her own podcast now. Sit down with Hawk Tua.
And she's like, she has as much
And there'll be
brains.
thousands of people tuning in.
She has as much to say as a bag of bricks.
Yeah. I mean, what is she going to talk about? She was a kindergarten teacher that said something off the cuff and was actually honest and like said something, but like went viral over it.
But one thing I will say this, I've been doing a lot of, a couple mentors, I pay for it because they said anything worth anything you pay for. And I've noticed now that social media has taken, well, it's trying to take a turn into being more organic. Everybody doesn't care about all that fanciness. They want to know who you are really. And if you can actually do what you say. A lot of people, like I said, when people ask me now to produce commercials and things for them, we go the road now of naturally doing. They don't want all the fanciness and all the flash and all the pop because
no more filters.
Yes, no more filters. No. Everybody becomes a used car salesman at this point because nobody, as you said earlier, you have to build trust. And if I can't show you that I can deliver what I say, well, I don't trust you because nobody is even giving you the gate of entry because you're already putting your hands up like, nah, I don't trust anybody now because nobody's real. Yeah. You have to put more effort into proving your value.
But that's the point. I think that the rebound of these times we're living, is that people are craving truth. They're craving real things. That's why you see more and more people wanting the reality, the experience, no more like, fake stuff.
No, because even reality shows are not real. It's a bunch of scripted mess.
Well, and I think a lot of leaders that have been frustrated about this, and I mean like true leaders at whatever they do, are starting to step up and put that out there. And that's who I want to follow. And I mean, it's just like you said earlier, like, yeah, I've paid to go do some mentorships. One of the greatest things I did was sign myself up after I bombed a speaking engagement to go to Jason Redman's course and force myself to get on stage and speak in front of people and learn the process, learn how these guys that do this for a living, that get up and speak in front of mass amounts of people, how they craft their trade. And, granted, I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker or anything like that, but even when I have to go present for my company, my day job or anything, I now know what those guys would do in preparation so that I don't bomb my 2-minute speech or my 5-minute presentation.
You become stronger.
You become stronger. Something
that you
weak.
Believe you're weak.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why we're doing a show on Tuesday night and not Thursday night. I'm going to another thing that Redmond's doing with Bedros Keuilian. And it's somebody else that I've watched do things that I was like, all right, I want to go hear what this guy has to say. I want to learn from him because what he's putting out there and showing, like, that's something I want to learn because I know he's strong at things that I am not.
I wish the world would adopt a cigar lounge mentality. The place where you can sit down with anyone, whether they're a millionaire or whether they work at McDonald's or it doesn't matter. You become even kill. Everybody's the same when you sit down and when you smoke something that's good and you find yourself getting in conversations, getting to know people. Like literally my entire friend base since I've moved to Dallas has been based on the cigar. Everybody I know, I only DJ cigar lounges. Most of the work I've gotten has been, matter of fact, all of the work I've gotten has been because of relationships from the cigar industry, cigar lounges. But it's just a point in fact, when you walk through those doors, the bullshit is left outside. I mean, yeah, there's some bullshit. There's some people, we get it. That's just characters. That's just personas. But for the most part, it gets back to the days to where you're shutting your computers off, you're putting your phones down, and it's back to the art of conversation.
Yeah, it gives the opportunity to be better.
Yes. Yeah, and this is a great equalizer. I like what I initially liked about cigars was I was quitting smoking cigarettes and dipping, and this was almost like meditation.
It is.
When you select a cigar, you're agreeing to 45 minutes to 2 hours of sitting with yourself or someone else and enjoying a cigar. It's time to let your brain relax. You can think about whatever it is you're going through. You could sit and journal while you're doing it. I mean, whatever it is you want to do. You want to read a book. You want to have a conversation with somebody. or somebody's going to have a conversation with you. And it's just it's a time commitment. And it opens up those doors and those pathways.
Especially if it's a good cigar, that just makes it all better.
Even better, right?
It just accentuates the positive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All day. I mean, I had to force myself. I kind of chilled out from smoking cigars and working because I chain smoke cigars because I'm editing and doing whatever all day. And now cigar for me is more of the reward if the work gets done. So if I finish all my work and do everything, then I'm allowed to have a cigar and close the laptop, watch television, listen to a book, do something, whatever. But now for me, I have to earn my cigars. And that's just a motivational way to kind of change the mindset. Mindset is everything. So if I can earn myself a good smoke, that means I got everything done. If I didn't get it done, I need to get it done because I can't light up. So I'll be on my patio 11 o'clock at night, and I get that one cigar and, go from 5 a day to if I get 1 or 2 good ones in, that means I got what I needed out the way.
Very good.
It's been hard.
I agree,
Trust
man.
me. It's hard because it's a habit. It's a habit. I can't do anything without doing something. But when you become conscious of it and you make discipline is probably the hardest thing. Like for me, the habit is every day going to the gym now. That's just a part of my routine. And I'm like, now there's other things in my life that I can add to make that a routine or a habit. Yeah. You work on the process every day. The goal is always going to be there. But how do you get to the goal? It's by repeated processes. I learned now if you focus on the process, you will achieve the goal and you won't even know you got there.
Well, you also got to have the discipline.
That's the discipline.
Do those things.
Yep.
Consistently. And so many people in the world lack the discipline. Like some people can't even brush their teeth consistently.
Which is crazy to me. But it goes back to what you said earlier, even about making blends. How do you keep the consistency? It's the constant tweaks and the process of it.
Absolutely.
And that's something that if you're keeping all the cigars that I smoke from you, I've never had a miss. And I've never thought about the process. How do you keep that consistent? You're talking about elements you can and can't control. Nature is nature. God does what he does. Yep. So how do you monitor and keep that? And I've never heard anybody say that to keep it consistent, you have to tweak it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn.
It's kind of basic, and believe me, most people do, but I don't know. It's another topic for a different day. But for some reason, I don't know why. I think sometimes you see some podcasts and bloggers just kind of repeating things over and over and over, and I think the manufacturers just go with it. So it's simple that way. Yeah. They already explained this way. Let's just keep it, But most of the series manufacturers that I know, they always doing the same. They're always tweaking to make sure there is consistency.
But do you guys think that? I think mediocrity has been accepted so much in today. People don't like when I DJ. I try not to never go on and judge another DJ, but if I see somebody that opens up a laptop or brings out records and they just play from their playlist. I never have a playlist. I walk in, I look at the crowd in front of me, and I work the crowd. And the crowd is always different, so I always have to come different.
Profiling people?
No. I'm just saying, but kidding. But no, actually, but I'll say it in a heartbeat, and I'll give a DJ props when he does it. But mediocrity, man, you killed it. No, he didn't. He played maybe 1 or 2 songs that everybody reacted to the whole of the time because he's going up there, going through the motions and going through the moves. Doesn't mean that he killed it. If you look at anything, podcasts, all that stuff, people just say because you put in the effort, you get an A for effort. You get the participation sticker instead of actually putting your best foot forward each time to keep that consistency. Do you guys look at raising the bar every time even if it's the same task, but do you try to raise the bar each time? Like, how do you approach tasks that you do over and over and over again?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I think they are, I notice, especially like what you guys are doing, like podcasts, for example. I see that some podcasts out there, of course I'm not mention names, etc., but they are more into like the same thing, like, oh, what's the binder, the filler? Okay, oh, that's awesome. And they talking about great things about your cigar. And then comes like, let's have some fun and ask some stats of whatever, and then go back to the cigar. And what you got on launch next week, and what are you going to launch this year, and those are important conversations. Don't take me wrong, but I think everybody can do a little better, right? And just kind of go there and provide more information.
I'd rather know the person that makes the cigar.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Versus just.
I want people to know the Luciano that when you're here that I sit down and talk with.
Yeah.
You have a great marketing team, a great website. You put out press releases and stuff like that. If it's something that can be answered on there, like, I would be embarrassed if I asked you one of those questions.
Yeah. But that's part of the business, though.
It's just like I had a good friend.
No, we have to answer. We have to be part of it. And I like to go on shows and talk about the products and talk about the stuff. But we can do a little more.
Yes.
And I like the fact that you guys are doing, and the level of questions is awesome, and just being able to just kind of share life and talk about things that are a little more than just cigars, and even get deep into the tobacco aspect, and I think people need information. The more they are provided information, the more they consume, the more they get aware. Everybody now, you see what happened with the wine industry in the past 20 years. I think we grew like 300% or something like that in consumption in the past 20 years. Because people now, they brag about the wine. They know where it comes from. They know the soil. They know the seed. They know, this is from the valley of Mendoza in Argentina, Patagonia.
Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk, who was
Bourbon.
15 or 16, he worked for his parents, and they had wines. There's a million wines on the shelf, and somebody walks in, a novice, they have no clue with their palate, what they do, whatever. And being that he did it, that's exactly what he did. He was able to break down the vineyards, where they came from, why this is, what this tastes like, what's your mood, this, that, and whatever. And this dude's a multi-millionaire in other aspects, but it started with knowing all of these wines.
Well, another one that means a lot to me, I mean, you guys probably don't notice this or know this yet, but like, there's a friend of mine that does not smoke cigars.
Clay?
Yep, Clay.
He just look what he said.
And he's talking here. He's like, man, this guy's making me want to try a cigar. Like, I want to learn more about this now. Like, I actually want to try this. Like, and he's not a cigar smoker. So just even somebody like that maybe hasn't been exposed to it, just getting to hear how much really goes into it and the passions behind it and the work that goes into it, like that, getting to hear those stories and how people relate to it and how they use it for different things, I think that matters way more than just, sitting here. I mean, I still can't tell you all the gauges, shapes, and size of it. I mean, that's like almost speaking another language to me. And I've been smoking stuff for a long time. Like, I mean, I have the basic ones down, but then you start breaking down wrappers and fillers and binders, and then break it down into the different regions that they all come from.
We're all in different aspects of it.
Seeds and soil. I mean,
right, exactly. You can smoke a cigar and I get the hint of this, I get the hint of that, I know this, I know that. And I'm like, I smoke, I'm like, this is good.
Yeah.
And I'm just right there. And that's good enough for me. But it's everybody, and like I responded to Clay, like, the portfolio that Luciano has, whether you're a beginner or aficionado, he can tap something on everywhere. And I tell everybody, smoking may not be for everybody, but at least try a cigar. The thing is that I hate it when somebody wants to try a cigar for the first time and they get a bad one, because you only get one chance at a first impression. And if you turn them off from it all the way, it's like, another one missed.
I'll tell you, man, if someone is introduced to cigars with flavored cigars, unfortunately, it's hard to take them out of that.
Yes.
And it's such a limited, world that they're living in. And they have no idea how much, many taste profiles are out there that doesn't require an artificial infusion,
Absolutely.
I got a partner of mine that's hard as bricks.
I don't want to get Dave on me tonight, because the Frakes were very gracious to let me work with you, and you as well with your time. This was totally unplanned. Again, it was something we've been trying to work on.
Next time we'll do well planned.
Yeah, next time we'll do well planned. But thank you so much, man, for coming on here and sitting down with us.
I had a great time. I had a great time.
We have two questions we ask every guest at the end of the show, because it's called Common Sense the Podcast.
Okay.
So the first one is, if you got to leave your children with one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Be genuine. Be just one person. That's a short answer, but the meaning behind it is I've learned with my grandfather that we all have three images. One is what we think of ourselves, one of other people think we are, and what we truly are. Once you align all these three images, and what you think of yourself is who you truly are, and people see that on you, then, and that's my advice to my girls, always like, be yourself, you know. Don't hide, you know, personalities. Don't just be yourself. You know, I think that's the advice I'll give to my children.
That's awesome, man. And then the last one's real easy. I don't know where you want to go with this, but we let everybody just give us their 2 cents.
Okay.
So it could be something you wanted to say that I didn't ask you, or just be something on your mind, or just something you're inspired to say. It really can be whatever.
Man, I think I'll end with a commending advice to you guys. I think keep doing what you're doing. Don't allow bullshit to kind of perpetuate, you know. Bring knowledge into your podcast. You know, there's so many people, good people out there, you know, that you guys can interview, and they are so knowledgeable, you know. So not just about the cigar education, but even about life, you know. Like you see the Frakes family, man. Those guys, they know what they're doing, you know. So they're one of the things I'm doing, by the way, is to end. This year we're going to have our annual sales meeting, and that sales meeting will be in Florida. For the first time, I'm inviting a retailer to come and speak into our sales meeting, because I want our sales guys to hear the perspective, the impressions of a retailer, what they expect from a sales rep.
That's
and
awesome.
And I'm bringing Dave to come and speak to our guys.
Yeah,
That's the right
Yeah.
one.
there you go.
We excited about that, you know. So yeah, you know,
Well,
I
I'm
think
gonna try to plan the next year to come see you in Nicaragua, because I just
Please
want
do, man.
I want to see the experience and see how it
Yeah.
all goes down.
absolutely, bro.
So, hey, man, again, thank you so much, Luch.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate
you guys.
you.
I hope you enjoyed this show. We will be back next Thursday, same time, same place as usual. We've got Ryan Stuman coming on here, so those of you guys have been waiting for that one. That's next Thursday, and you guys be safe. We'll see you soon. Peace.